Panther. Okay. Nope. Says I'm streaming. That is sure enough. Hi, how you doing, Pam? I don't know how this is going to go as usual. I can't open up both screens on this laptop. How you doing, Yoni? How are you today? Happy pre-New Year's Eve to you, too. As you can see this evening, I'm talking about this trendy movie called Bird Box. I think it's offered, I saw it on Netflix, and it stars Sandra Bullock. So I'm going to talk about it and then break it down, interpret it, the metaphysical meaning to it. And I'm sure it's all over the place. I've seen a lot of people talk about it, so I thought I'd put my 2 cents in. Why not? So let's see. I guess I can start by telling a story. And as you see, I have typed up there, spoiler alert. I'm going to tell the whole story in a summary, hopefully. And then I'm going to break it down and go into detail because everybody seems to have their own interpretation to the movie. And my daughter told me about it. She says it was so much talk about the movie Bird Box on Facebook or something. And so I watched it. It was a movie to watch. It got me through the evening. Personally, it was nothing extraordinary, but it does have a lot of metaphysical meanings and things like that. So I thought that would be interesting. What is the Bird Box all about? Okay, now I'm going to tell you, Pam, if you think you might watch it, don't watch this video to afterwards because this will definitely spoil it for you. It wasn't a bad movie. It was a really nice movie. It was nothing, to be raving about. It was like a post-apocalypse type of movie, something like that. But it was nothing extraordinary to be raving about, to be all on Facebook talking about, and it's spreading like wildfire. But I thought about, I was like, why is this movie raving or trending? I know that the entertainment industry can push and promote certain things. Maybe they did that. Or what I thought about is that the younger generation is taking over. Older people are fading off into the background. They are losing their power, financial power, social power, all those kind of things. And so this would be new to the younger generation is what I thought about. Might be why it's a big rave. It says, I have an appointment in 30 minutes for about an hour, so I'll miss some. Okay, well, just come back when you get a chance. I'm just thankful you dropped by. How was everybody Christmas holiday, if you celebrated Christmas? Or extra day off work? I haven't seen this show yet. Too much anxiety for me. I'm excited about your insights. Okay, well, thank you. Well, I'm going to begin. So, Sandra Bullock is the main character, and her name is Mallory. Mallory is a single pregnant woman. Mallory is an artist, and she has a sister. I didn't catch the sister's name. And her sister is really her backbone, really there for her. However, Mallory is emotionally shut down or detached. She's been traumatized because her significant other walked out on her. And I think his name was Ryan. Now, Ryan doesn't appear in the movie, they just reference him. So Sandra Bullock is like, she seems, hi Jordan, she seems very strong as far as controlling her emotions and not letting it get the best of her. However, her significant other walking out on her, of course, has led to her being hard and rigid. Not only that, in the course of the movie, Mallory, the main character, and her sister reference their father and talks about how their father was a stud. He was out there in the streets getting it in, and he was abusive to his family. So that let the viewer know that she has had a long history of like letdowns from men and emotional scars, wounds, or trauma brought on through her relationship with men. The next character, so Sandra Bullock, sister, accompanies her to the, what do they call it, the OBGYN for having a baby or whatever it's called. And her sister is telling her about this outbreak that has occurred in Russia, the country Russia. And the outbreak is that people have begun to kill themselves out of nowhere. And the sickness is described as, where's the news clip? The news program describes this outbreak as symptoms of the outbreak reportedly include psychotic and erratic behavior. So when Mallory and her sister are leaving her appointment, Mallory actually sees someone in the hospital attempting to kill herself. Now, her sister's already gone to the car. And so when she sees it, she says, oh, my God, it's here. She runs out to the car. She tells her sister, whatever's going on is here. Now it's a pandemic. People are killing themselves and nobody knows why. And so Mallory and her sister leave the hospital. They're trying to get to Mallory's sister's home. But in between the hospital and getting to Mallory's sister's home, Mallory's sister ends up seeing the entity that is leading people to kill themselves, become psychotic and erratic, and kill themselves while she's driving. And so I won't go into details, say a little something. So anyway, they get in the car accident. Mallory's sister, of course, dies, but Mallory is saved by this gentleman, and his name is Tom. Now, I'm going to tell you about Tom. Tom is a black guy. I think his whole name is Thomas. And Thomas is sexy. I know that. Okay. Thomas is ex-military, and he currently is, or was in the movie, a construction contractor. His whole crew killed themselves before he went on the run away from what was ever happening. Anyway, Tom and Mallory, as well as another young woman, I don't know the young woman's name. I don't think they ever said it. But she was a young Caucasian woman, and she was in the police academy, or she was a police rookie. So the young rookie lady, Mallory, and Tom run up to this house on the corner, big, beautiful home, banging on the door for the people to open the door. Eventually, the people open the door, and so now we have all of these, what we'll call survivors, in this house on the corner. And So right now I'm going to, everything is absolutely chaotic. So in the movie, so right now I'm about to introduce you to all the characters, hi Zip, that are in the house while everything is going nuts. And this is global. It's global. I guess I could say this, where these characters that I'll be speaking of are in California. Let that be known. So we talked about Mallory. Now the person's house that they all go to for a safe haven is, I want to say his name, the man said Luson. He was like an Asian guy. And then later on in the movie, I heard Greg. But I'm going to use Luson because I kept rewinding and I thought I heard Luson. And so he's an Asian male, and he's the homeowner of this beautiful house that sits on the corner. Now he has all of these strange people in his house because of the chaos that's outside. People are killing themselves left and right, stuff blowing up. It's insane. And so the homeowner was gay. He was married, but his significant other, his husband, was not home. His husband is an architect in the movie. And it was something that popped up in the course of the movie. And you see, I got all this stuff behind me on this live stream, if it's working right, because this is some of the symbolism that was shown throughout the movie. But there was one thing I didn't put up. I couldn't get it up there. It was an inverted crucifix in the house of Luson, the person where everybody was over. It was an inverted crucifix in his library, in his husband's library. And so the inverted crucifix, anybody know what the inverted crucifix mean? Nancy, bring that much needed insight. Oh, I got some insight. Now I watched some videos. I started seeing, I'm stopping because I'm about to rant a little bit. After I watched the Bird Box, I'd be here on YouTube. And so eventually I go come past a video where they're talking about it. And so I watch it because I'm like, what was this? Again, this excitement or this trend around this movie. It was okay, but it wasn't like that. And so I was watching the different interpretations. I was like, that's not what I got from it. That's not what I got from it, And so I said, I'm going to sit down and try to write some notes. They're everywhere. They're messy. So I guess I can jump on a bandwagon too and share, because what I believe that I witnessed in watching it was nothing like what others interpreted as. And so I continue. Right now we have Mallory, who's pregnant, and she's about 8 months pregnant, along with Thomas, the black guy that runs up and helps her out, as well as the Caucasian young woman that's a police rookie. And they've gone into Luson's home, big, beautiful home. And there's an inverted crucifix hanging in their office. And I bring up that crucifix because we know an inverted crucifix, hi Tina, has a meaning. I watched the movie and I thought it was about spiritual warfare. There you go, Tina. It is. And I'm going into it deep. And it really lines up with what I have been talking about here on my channel. But I don't want to jump the gun. I'm already going to be all over the place. So this inverted crucifix, of course, I did not take the time to research it because I kind of already figured I knew what it mean. And it's this rejection of religion and of Christ and of Christianity. At least that's what I think it means. And it's possible that if one rejects Christianity, they could possibly be more into the satanic world, or do as thou wilt is the law. And I believe that inverted crucifix was in this gay couple's home because, number one, they were what? They were gay and they were married and living their American dream. So who else is in this safe haven, this house, Luson's house? We'll call it the safe haven. We have Mallory, Luson, of course, because it's his house. Luson's husband is not at the house at this time. He never comes in during the course of the movie. We also have Thomas. This is the black guy, ex-military, that in the movie was a contractor till his whole crew killed themselves. He running. He get Mallory up, and him, the police rookie lady, they go into this house. Douglas is in the house. I'm not going to give y'all all the details so y'all have something to watch when you go in. Now, who is Douglas? Well, Douglas is Lusan's neighbor. And Douglas is there because him and his wife are over there trying to talk Lusan and his husband out of tearing up this beautiful house in order to build it. What do you call it? Renovate it. They were going to put a glass house on the back of a beautiful, naturally built home. Remember, Lusan's husband was an architect. And so this new character, Douglas, is over there with his wife saying, hey, don't tear up this house. I don't want to look at the monstrosity, you're trying to build, da, 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 da. So let's talk about Douglas, getting to know the characters that are in the house. Douglas has a wife named, I think, Lydia. And anyway, Lydia sees one of the spirit things and kills herself. Anyway, so moving on, just trying to save y'all some stuff to watch if you go watch it. What does Douglas do for a living? Well, he's a bankruptcy attorney. So far, let me finish. He's a bankruptcy attorney. Now, Douglas' character is very serious. He's very realistic, and he is a straight up asshole, and he know it, and he don't care. No. And so right now, I just kind of want to go back and talk about how Mallory, she's an artist. And Lusan, I guess, is more of a house husband because his husband is a major architect. So I'm saying that Lusan and his spouse are well-to-do. Douglas is kind of attorney, a bankruptcy attorney. He and his wife are well-to-do. They're comfortable. Then Thomas, who's ex-military, probably pulling a pension, those kind of things, and is currently owned a construction company, is most likely well-to-do. Now, later on in the movie, other characters join in the house. Oh, let me talk about. So when Thomas and Mallory and a police rookie get to the house, not only is it Lusan who owns the house, it's Douglas, the next door neighbor, who's arguing and fussing about the extension. But there's also another couple, and they never said the couple's name. And I would just say that it was a Caucasian couple, married couple, with a heterosexual couple. And I guess I need to finish because if I pass it up, I'm going to forget. Now, I got to go back to the main character, Mallory, who's played by Sandra Bullock. She is, again, remember, she's traumatized because she's pregnant. Her significant other has left her. Ryan has left. He's not a part of the movie. He's just referenced. And so she's emotionally shut down. She is an artist. And at the beginning of the movie, they show her creating this beautiful painting. She has paintings everywhere. Her sister comments on her painting. The painting is of a group of people. Think of the oil painting by Leonardo da Vinci. I think Leonardo da Vinci painted The Last Supper. So the people sitting around like that, like did the Last Supper, but they, even though grouped up, they were very lonely or isolated or even alienated while in a group. How is that possible? But that painting at the beginning is highly significant to the theme of the movie and the real metaphysical meaning and why the spiritual battle is actually, the spiritual warfare is actually taking place. Keep in mind this picture. It has various people of various nationalities sitting together, but yet they're engaged or preoccupied with their own thing. They're together, but they're preoccupied with their own thing. It is an unfinished piece of artwork, but you can see where it's going. And her sister comments on it to make sure that the audience pays it attention. Hopefully I remember come back to it. So, what was I going to say? Still running my mouth. Oh, I talked about the couple. Oh, reason why I wanted to go back and talk about Mallory and her painting and her state of being is because this couple that they never gave the name of is just a heterosexual Caucasian couple, married couple. Is that Mallory wasn't accepting or acknowledging that she was like 8 months pregnant and about to have a baby. The doctor offered her the opportunity, to give her the information for abortion. When I'm saying Mallory was just emotionally detached, she was emotionally detached from it. In the course of the movie, she ended up not naming her child. She was that emotionally detached. So this couple played a major role as well. Why? Because while all this chaos is taking place, everybody trying to pull themselves together. Sandra Bullock and Tom and just ran in with the rookie officer, and everybody trying to catch their breath. This couple's phone ring, and the woman says, "Thank Jesus." Immediately, the viewer knows that they are a religious couple. Now, mind you, they're standing in the home of a homosexual married man with an inverted crucifix up in his study. And so the wife says, "Thank you, Jesus." Why is she saying thank you, Jesus? Because their children, that couple's children, was still at home at the onset of this insanity and this chaos and this suicide. When the father answered the phone, their child asked, "What is this creature or this being?" And then you hear that child doing away with themselves. The parents are frantic and they say, "I gotta go. I gotta go." Now they've been in the house. They got to go out back in this chaos and all of this death to get to their kids. Why is that important? Because unlike Sandra Bullock or Mallory, they were committed, devoted parents that will walk through hell for their children. Sandra Bullock was Mallory was the opposite. She was in complete denial while this couple, heterosexual, perfectly married, religious couple, fully dedicated to their kids. Oh yeah, remember I was saying that Mallory didn't even name her child in the course of the movie, and to the end of the movie. Well, these parents, when they answered the phone, they called their child's name out, and the child's name was what was his name? Because they made sure that they said it loud, and they Bailey, Bailey, and so it was this name that that also gave a clue to the viewer of what role this couple was playing. Anyway, they their role in the movie ends as they run out the door back into the hell state and the chaos to get home to their kids. Chances of them making it based on the movie was zero, but they was going to try. So now we have in the house, after that couple's leave, we had the homeowner, the neighbor that's cussing, Mallory, who's pregnant, about 8 months pregnant. We have Tom, the construction worker, ex-military, and we have then there are two other people that we have the police officer. See, I don't know. I think they end up calling that police officer Lydia too. And I say two because the next door neighbor's wife name was Lydia. So we have the police officer or rookie lady. Then there was another young guy around her age. They would look like they were early 20s. Now, he was a Caucasian dude, tattooed up, and he was popping pills. He was stressed out, so he was popping pills. Anyway, we'll try to make a long story short. In the course of the movie, they hook up, they get sexual, and being in their early 20s, they are reckless. They're reckless. So they just take off in the middle of the movie because they finally found a way to get outside past these creatures and this energy. And they stole that ability away from the group, just thinking of themselves, being reckless. In the movie, they never talked about where they could possibly go or what they could possibly be up to. They just jetted on. And so They were basically representation of the young, reckless lovers that we have in our society. I'm letting them go because they leave in the middle of the movie. Another person that was in the house was this older lady. I never heard her say her name. All she shared about herself was that her husband was also an attorney, just like Douglas, but her husband was into trust and estates, that kind of thing, trust and estates attorney. So we can assume she was a well-kept woman. She was in her late 60s, early 70s, well-kept woman. And the role she actually played, why was she in the movie? Why is she significant? Because she played the old, what do you call it, midwife, when it was time for the mothers to give birth. With that being said, there was another mother, pregnant woman, that came in the course of the movie. And her name was, or is in the movie, Olympia. And Olympia, now I'm going somewhere with this, y'all. Y'all will never hear this anywhere. This is so interesting when I really did my research on this movie. So Olympia she comes to the house later on. She's been held up in her own personal home. Her husband is military. He's off. And so she ran out of food. She was scared she's going to starve her and the baby. So she blindfolded herself. They had to blindfold themselves in order to move around outside. She found her way to the house. They let her in. So we have this woman, and this is who she is as a character or person, that she was not only pregnant about 8 months as well, or almost 9 months, within days of having babies, her and Mallory were. She was self-confessed spoiled rotten by her parents. Then she married her husband, where anything she did was okay, perfect. He was happy with her, whatever. She said she was spoiled, rotten, and loved so much she was made soft. So why is that an issue or relevant to this movie? It is because Olympia never lived a difficult life or a hard life or trauma. She was like me. She lived at one time. She lived with the rose-colored glasses on. She lived a fairy tale. With that being said, in the course of the movie, Mallory asked Olympia, "What are you going to name the baby?" And Olympia says, "Well, it's supposed to be a girl." So I was going to name her either Ariel or Jasmine. She said, but if I could, I would name her Cinderella and just call her Ella. Of course, that just ties right back into what an enchanted life, or undisturbed or untraumatic life Olympia had lived in the course of her life. Okay, I got to come back to something there. Now, there is one other character. I hope I ain't left nobody out because my notes are terrible. And this last character I say because I just love him. And his name in the movie is Charlie. Now, Charlie is a black guy, and he's the same guy that played the best friend of the fellow in the movie Get Out, if you saw the movie Get Out. In Get Out, Charlie was advising his friend, saying this ain't right. He knew everything. He knew everything that his friend was going through and was telling him, "Hey, you in danger." Well, in this movie, he played basically the same kind of character. Let me tell you about Charlie. Now, Charlie, he was a manager, I do believe, at the local or neighborhood grocery store. He was self-taught, and he was an avatar for anybody who is like a conspiracy theorist, people like some of us that research stuff online and think we know it. That was him. But he knew what he knew, just like in Get Out. He knew. In this movie, he knew too. He knew that he knew through his consistent interests and studies and research with the primary tool of the internet, that what they were dealing with were ancient spiritual beings that had come to judge humanity. But I don't want to jump ahead. So he was self-taught. in mythology and history and things like that. hmm And he played a significant role too. So let's see, because I'm going somewhere with this. So I talked about this. I am going somewhere with this. So let me move along in the movie, in the little script thing, so that I can break down various symbolisms. So now we have all these people, of course, held up in this house. All of this madness and chaos is going on until everybody's killed themselves or hid away. And so while the people are in the house, of course, they have to do something. And one of the things that the main character, who is Sandra Bullock, her name Mallory in the movie, does is she gets some books. Now, mind you, they're in a beautiful home, and these are well-to-do people, so there's stacks and stacks of books. And a lot of the books that seem to be on the shelves have to do with architecture. I think I'm saying it right. And so she comes into the room with two books. So if all is going well, it's possible that you see the little stuff I put around me. And I can't see me. So I'm going to describe, what I'm talking about at this time. Now, I want to say, not that way. Maybe. I can't tell. Well, let me start with the image of the bird box so that we're, kind of our perspective is the same way. I have the what is it, the thumbnail or the advertising imagery for the movie Bird Box. You see Sandra Bullock or Mallory with the blindfold on, and over the blindfold you see Bird Box. And she has a little girl in the scene. Just above that is a boat. Then what you see next to the boat are two cubes. I'm going to come back and talk about these things. I just want to move you across the page, the screen. And you also see right up under those cubes, the planet Saturn. And then as you move over, you see one of the books that Mallory held. In the course of the film, she held two books. One book was on modern architecture, and the other, it was this, where did I put it at? Oh, let's see if I can pronounce this artist's name and the name of the book, which is Piranesi. And I'm going to read, you can Google it. The artist's name is Giovanni Battista, Giovanni Battista Piranesi, or something like that. And this artist, the book I'm talking about in the upper corner, was born, check this out, on October 4th, 1720. If this artist that I'm about to talk about was born October 4th in 1720, then he would be a Libra. Why is that important? Why is that significant in this movie? It is because when Olympia, the second pregnant woman, came to the house, after everybody calmed down, the first thing they asked her, "Well, are you pregnant?" And she says, "Yes." And they asked, "When are you due?" She says, "I'm due October 1st. If her baby is due October 1st, that means that the baby would be a Libra. Well, she looks over at Mallory, Sandra Bullock, and says, "You're pregnant too." And Mallory says, "Yes, I'm due late September." Late September suggests that Mallory's child would be born as what? A Libra. I found that interesting because the artist that we're about to talk about is a Libra. And as mentioned, his birthday was October, what is it, 4th? Libra. Why is Libra significant? Why I'm here? And let me see how I can talk about this. This movie, subject matter that it dealt with was relationships and partnerships. And it's really interesting that that movie was created and released at this time. Why? Because the astrological energies have had us who, me, you, and every individual in humanity dealing with relationship issues or seventh house matters, partnerships, intimate one-to-one connection, whether business or personal, etc., etc. And remember, it was about establishing contracts, putting your terms and conditions on the floor, learning what other people's terms and conditions are, seeing if you can answer their terms or fulfill their terms and conditions, and finding out if they can fulfill yours. Really, it was about seeing how compatible you are. And I don't want to jump ahead and give out the whole meaning of the movie. So keep in mind that seventh house matters, partnerships, and social contracts are a key subject matter that this movie is dealing with. And so I bring that up in relationship to the artist that we're about to talk about. Remember the artist on the book. What is his name? Paraines. I'm calling him Paraines. Yeah, being October 4th. Libra, partnerships. Mallory's baby as well as Olympia's baby were both due under the sign of Libra, partnerships. Remember, going back to the picture the painting that Mallory was creating in the beginning, it was about a group of people of all nationalities and races, and they were together, but yet they were separated or emotionally detached from one another, meaning they weren't able to forge partnerships or connections because they were preoccupied. They were preoccupied with their own issues or concerns. And this takes it to another level. So you just got to catch me on this because this is offered in every movie or anything you ever see. But in the movie itself, it was about partnerships. It was I'm ready. I think I am. So it was about Mallory and her sister who died. It was about the homosexual guy and his significant other. It was about that homosexual couple with their neighbor, and see how the partnerships and contracts. It was about Mallory and her ex who walked out, Ryan. Then it ends up coming that Mallory and Tom get together in the course of the movie. So now we got an interracial couple. Then we had Olympia, whose husband was deployed because he was in the military. So we're talking about a military wife and what a military wife has to deal with since when her husband is deployed. And so it was all these connections and how people play in our lives, including the older lady I spoke of, where she was there merely throughout the movie just to be a midwife. That was her role. That was her term and condition for being in the movie, for interacting in that group. And so those type of connections are just examples. The characters' connections are examples of the contractual agreements that we are in with others. And so I want to move forward. Let's see. I want to talk about the book. Let's talk about the book. Well, I can't talk about the book because I got to move forward with the story. And so, of course, the characters are trying to figure out what's going on. They're listening to the radio, watching TV. So let me talk about the TV programming. I mean, even though the movie seemed really simple, it was really in depth. Again, it wasn't the greatest movie, but it was nice. It was nice. It was a nice evening. I want to talk about the TV programming. Okay, as these group of people are in this house, and we're going to call it the safe haven. Of course, they're trying to figure out what's going on, and so they're listening to the radio and they're watching TV before all that stuff shuts off. And so they end up watching the news channel, which is kind of staticky. And the news station was called capital WEUB. W as in we, E as in egg, U as in umbrella, and B as in ball. WEUB. And so I just chuckled. What does that mean? Of course, we, WE. Didn't I just talk about how Libra represents a we or a us in social connections is together? But let me define we. We, as defined by, www.dictionary.com says, it refers to all people or people in general. And then, so I'm looking like, okay, that's kind of self-explanatory, but what about the UB? And so I went to Wikipedia and I looked up what UB could mean. And it is possible that the reason the news station channel was called UB, is because the UB is short for urban behavior, because they did seem like they were in an urban area or they were in a condensed suburban area or a very clean urban area. Or UB could stand for undefined behavior. So what am I saying? I'm saying as the characters in the house were watching their news station, WEUB, at that time, they didn't know what was going on. It was undefined behavior. And we representing all the people. So it was undefined, possibly, behavior of all people. Now, at the bottom, of course, this is an alert. It's a pandemic taking place. So at the bottom, it says global alert. We know then that it's worldwide. And the symptoms, as I shared earlier in this live stream, the symptoms reported increased. The symptoms reportedly included psychotic and erratic behavior. Still talking about the TV program and what they were watching on the TV. What the viewer ended up seeing is that there were military on site attempting to control the chaos. They, in the course of that news flash, said, hey, we suggest that you avoid social media. Why? Because it makes it more, what is the word, manic or, crazed. So don't engage in the social media because it just adds to the craze. Right before the loss of that public announcement, the TV station, one thing became clear to me as I could see the military being shuffled, that they too were susceptible to this judgment of these ancient spiritual beings. But the TV goes off. So let's talk about right now, we get into the good part, the ancient spiritual beings. Now we learn about what is causing or leading to these this erratic, psychotic behavior. Charlie tells us. Remember, Charlie is the black guy from Get Out. Charlie tells us. Because remember, he is a self-taught mythology and history buff, and he's a conspiracy theory, and he do all this research here on the internet like I do. And he knew. And he tells us. He tells the group. He says that the presence that we have been experiencing, that we've been hearing, and some of us are seeing and then killing ourselves, are based on his research. I forgot to say he was writing a book. Anyway, based on his research, he knew that presence were demons or spiritual beings, ancient spiritual beings that were there to issue out judgment to humanity by forcing them to do one, see their worst fears, two, or to experience their deepest sadness, or three, to like have this remembrance of their greatest losses. And upon having that reoccurrence or that intense flashback, the people would kill themselves, and that would be the fulfillment of the judgment. Okay, I talked about that. So anyway, now we know about all the characters. We know about the spirit beings. Now that we know about the spirit beings, we need to go back to this book in this upper corner. And this artist, I'm going to just call him Gavani. His first name is Gavani. Why is Gavani important? Well, he's important for multiple reasons. I'm going to have to jump to the end in order to kind of make it make sense. Remember, this is all spoiler. So, hi, how you doing, Tora? So I'm jumping to the end because at the end, of course, the star survives and the children survive. The boy and the girl, they survive. Still not having names. And they find a new safe haven. And the safe haven is, I can say that for you. It's not necessary that I share that. The safe haven is directly linked to this book you see in this upper corner. Remember I said when Sandra Bullock needed something to do, she pulled two books from the shelves, and one was Modern Architecture and one was this Gavani's book. And Gavani was an artist. And so Gavani dealt with, let me tell you what he dealt with, and maybe it'll make sense. Where's Gavani? Maybe this is it. Okay. We're still dealing with the book in the upper corner. And the painting, might as well point out the painting below the book. That particular painting most likely is in the book. That is an example of the work that Gavani did when he was alive. And that work, that sketching or etching that you see is the same technique. What do you call it? Technique and I did art history and can't remember, but it's basically the same technique that was used in the movie, The Bird Box. So, how do I know? Number one, the book was placed in the movie for the viewer to see, to reference back to this artist that you see, the name on the book. I don't even know where it is. I can't see myself. And so, talking about this book is going to cover where they end up at the end, the safe haven at the end, but it also covers these demons or these ancient spiritual beings. I'll read. Talking about the artist, I'm gonna read. So, we've already talked about how this particular artist, Gavani, is a Libra. Now, it says that Gavani Batista Paranisa, I don't know, was an Italian artist famous for his etchings of Rome and of fictitious and atmospheric prisons. I want to read that last in again. He was an Italian artist famous for his etchings of Rome and of fictitious, and atmospheric prisons. Why is that important about the artist? What artist am I talking about in case I've lost you? In the course of the movie, Mallory, who is Sandra Bullock, pulls two books in order to read, entertain herself in the midst of the chaos to calm down. One of the books is the books that I've offered in the corner, and it's Pyranus or whatever it is. His name is Gavani. I can pronounce the first name. That artist. And so when I saw that book, it was a clue for the viewer. So I went and researched and looked for that book. And I also, the other book that she had was about modern architecture. Now, both books deal with the safe haven that they end up at the end of the video, at the end of the movie. The picture, the etching, the sketch you see to the side of me is reminiscent of the kind of architecture of the building or the safe haven they end up at the end. Going back to the book in the corner, why is it relevant? The safe haven that they end up at the end of a movie truly is a safe haven for them, as well as anyone else that finds their way there. It is a safe haven when you look at it on a surface level. However, Gavani, the artist, dealt with creating fake or fictitious atmospheric prisons. And so what am I saying? When Sandra Bullock, Mallory, and the children, the boy and girl, made their way to the sanctuary, the safe haven, that's where they had to stay. It was a prison. But of course, the viewer looks at it as, whoo, they're safe now. But in actuality, it is a prison. And so that is how the artist, that book that I'm sharing, is connected to their in safe haven. It is also, I knew I was going to get confused. So let me just keep reading about the artist, and then I'll throw everything out there. So still talking about this artist and this book up in the corner and this sketch along the side, wherever it is on whatever side. He dealt with architectural fantasy, and he was dealt or during the period of or painted or sketched or etched in the period of neoclassicism. One of the main features of neoclassicism is the attitude toward nature. That's significant as well. And the use of the past. Why is the past relevant? Where Charlie, the character Charlie, told us that these are ancient beings coming back to judge humanity. Why is it relevant to the past? Because each of us individuals in humanity, including the characters in this movie, had something from the past that they had not dealt with that was just lingering and eating away at them from the past. So anyway, I move on. Still talking about this artist and this book and his etchings. Why is he relevant? It's because this artist worked with and was a master. This is really important. He worked with and was a master of the distribution of light and of shade. Please look at the sketch, the etch, because Gavani was a master at the distribution of light and shade. Why is that important? Why is Gavani, the artist, important? Why was he referenced by putting that book in Sandra Bullock's hand or Mallory's hands? It is because, gotta tell a story. Gosh. The light and the dark are very, very important in this movie, Bird Box. Very important. All through the movie, all you see is the light and the shadow, the light and the shade. It is referencing and pointing back to the artist Gavani, the book, and the etching. In the course of the movie, they let the strange guy into the house trying to save another person. However, this person was immune to those demons and ancient spiritual beings. He was immune. Well, there were a few people that were immune to them. One was this man who represented the crazy people, people that already had a psychotic break in their life and they were dealing with it, or people that were criminally insane. Those demons did not have an effect on them. So the people let this stranger in, and the stranger brought with him about a dozen sketches or etches done in the light and shaded or dark method that is reminiscent of the sketch you see here. If I'm making it make sense, you will understand that the people that created the movie The Bird Box used the same technique of light and shade to create the scary demon monsters, sketching them on paper and putting them out on the table in the course of the movie. They used the same technique as this artist, is what I'm saying. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Another way this artist was presented in this movie, and of course this movie, is this fabulous, beautiful house that was built with a lot of natural woods and cobblestones and things like that. It also had a lot of windows, a whole lot of windows. And I know most of y'all heard that the windows are like eyes. You know how the eyes are the windows to the soul? Well, windows are considered eyes as well because they allow you to see out and they allow you to see in. And in this movie, people didn't want to see because if they saw those ancient spiritual entities, beings, or demons, they would be suddenly deal with their own personal worst fears, their greatest losses, and those kind of things, and kill themselves. So a person didn't want to see. If a person went outside, they had to wear blindfolds. So going back to these beings in this house and these beings being outside, and it's all of these windows. So the homeowners, when they were decorating the home, put these like black window darkening, like bamboo type shades to the window. And just with the window and those type of blackening, or what they call it, room darkening, bamboo like shades, gave the exact same the exact same look as this etching you see on the side. Now, the majority of Gavani's, the artist, etchings were just like that. It was the same shade, tin, etching, everything. And the shades and the windows did the same thing. Not only was that the case, there was something else that they put in the movie to help the viewer understand what message was being offered in the course of the movie. It was that the occupants of the house, that group, went around and hung newspaper on every single window. This is a house full of windows. So why is that relevant? What does it mean? Remember, windows represent eyes. And they put all of the newspaper over the eyes. That suggests that it was talking about people, humans, seeing, witnessing, experiencing. These are things we talked about. Everything that's in the newspaper. There is someone that is the perpetuator of all the news feeds that we see. And why is any person doing whatever? Why are they acting up? Why are they murdering, stealing, killing, destroying, or doing nice things, whatever the case is? Is because they have some issues that they need resolved, but don't nobody care. And so it goes unaddressed, and eventually a person acts out. And so all of the newspapers in the windows is just like this. Uh, it's like looking back, retrograding back when we all done looked at the paper and we done seen the cries, and we done seen how if it's ignored that we people act upon it. And then what happens? The shade is just laid over. We ignore it. And so why do we ignore these things? This movie was really complex. It was good as far as that. The shade. In the beginning of this live stream, I talked about how most of these people were established in life. They were happy with their spouses. They were financially okay. Sandra Bullock or Mallory was an artist. She enjoyed her art, even though she was going through a heartbreak. She learned how to emotionally shut down and detach. And that's what we humans end up doing. But we never deal with what is really bothering us, nor we don't deal with what's really taking place for ourselves. And so we're not doing it for another. We get to the point that many of us are like Mallory, where we just emotionally shut down and we just keep moving forward, pretending, having a fake smile, et cetera, et cetera. This movie, Bird Box, covered all of that. And it lets us know if we continue, this is things we're talking about, if we continue to move forward, there is going to be a day of reckoning. And that day of reckoning is, in the movie, shown by the spirits giving people their own revelation. But eventually, we're going to be confronted with them worst fears, those greatest losses, our greatest sadness. And if we don't get help, that it can be devastating, even to the point of death or, committing suicide. But I'm going to go on. So I've talked about all the people in the house. I done talked about, I might as well throw this in here. Anyway, eventually, the nutcase, the new guy, I don't even think they ever said his name, but he seemed like he was a sociopath. He was well dressed. Of course, he was dusty because they was going through stuff, but he was well dressed, well spoken. You could tell he was a handsome cat, but he was nuttied in a Bessie bug. And so remember, if you nuttied in a Bessie bug, the creatures didn't bother you. And the people would say, those nuttied in a Bessie bug folk would say, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. You must see. They wanted everybody to see. Either you saw and you was a nutty buddy, and so you got to keep living on, and you admired the dark, or you died because you couldn't handle it, one way or another. And so the nutty buddy folks, the people that had the psychotic issues and problems, why weren't they compelled to commit suicide? It is because they had already walked hell in their life. They already been there. They've already been ignored. They were way past go. So the whole point is that they were still in and still dealing with their emotional wounds, loss, hurts. Their psyche was already broke and shattered. They were already one with the beings. They were already one. And at the end, remember, the main character and the children, the boy and girl, they make it to the safe haven. And I do have to tell you, the safe haven is a sanctuary, a school for the blind. School for the blind. I think it was called Janet Tucker's School for the Blind. And so they weren't affected. The blind people weren't affected because they couldn't see the dark. They couldn't see the dark. Now, I kind of have a hard time interpreting that because to be born in this world with one less your senses, not having all your faculties. Number one, you're coming out from jump dealing with dealing with challenges. Some people are able to progress in life and overcome and be gainfully employed and this and that, but other people find it hard. They could be bullied. They may be on a fixed income, these kind of things. So they walk their own personal hell. That could be it too. But in the movie, they couldn't see the beings, so they weren't affected by the beings, these dark entities. Now, these dark entities, you knew they were coming. Why? Because of the birds. The birds would go insane. They would go insane, and the entities they rolled on the wind or in the wind, and when they come, the wind will pick up, and then you'll see the shadow move, and the beings. This man, remember the nutty guy, the sociopath, had all of these pictures he had sketched of these beings. And he took them out his bag and placed them on the table to look at them and admire them. And he was listening to music as the women were upstairs giving birth to their babies. Remember, the older lady was merely in the movie to be the midwife. Well, she served her purpose. She was the midwife. And so Nutty Buddy, the psychopath, is downstairs admiring these beautiful etchings, just like the one you see on the side of me, with the light and the dark. And in drawing more pictures, he had seen so many, and he kept saying, it's beautiful, it's beautiful, it's beautiful. All the crazy people or criminally insane or the psychotically messed up people said, it's beautiful, you got to see. What was beautiful? When you think of what was beautiful, what did they want everyone to see? They want everyone to see the truth. The truth about what? Everything that we hide, everything. All of the injustices, all of the wrongs, all of the mental illness, all the judging, everything, the losses, the hurt, and how people are affected and influenced. See the dark, see the pain. They had already seen it. They already lived with it. And so I'll go on. So I just got through talking about the artist and his significance, and he was directly related to the windows and the shades and the newspaper and those dark, shadowy, spiritual beings that compel people to, or gave them revelation and led them to commit suicide. And how this artist the book was placed so we would know, we could research the artist to find out a deeper meaning or metaphysical meaning to the movie. And it also has to do, remember, with the safe haven at the end that Mallory and the children find, and how that becomes their sanctuary, but it is also a prison. So now during the course of the movie, of course, the people are in the house. They've been held up in there for a while. Of course, they done ran out of food. So now they got to figure out a way to get food. And they do. So they go to a market, they get the food. While at the market, Mallory finds 3 little birds, I think it were. 3 little birds. I don't know what they were. I tried to figure out what they were. But they were little birdies. And she takes the birds back to the house with her, and what she realizes is that the birds respond to these dark entities, these dark shadows, and they're like a natural alarm. Remember, going back to the artist, Gavani, he dealt with nature, and how'd it go? Oh, the attitudes toward nature. And so the birds were like a natural alarm when these entities came back by, because those entities were predatory. And so they would respond aggressively and become frantic and alarm whomever was around. Those birds were also present in the safe haven at the end, because it was a sanctuary, or what do you call it, atrium or birdhouse that was closed in, like a closed in courtyard with beautiful flowers and the growing vines and all of the birds. So they alerted the residents of the safe haven at the end. Nevertheless, it was a prison. Let me talk about the birds. I'm jumping. The birds. Why are the birds significant? Why is it called the bird box? That's what we're about to deal with. Why is it called the bird box? Number one, what do birds represent? Number one, birds represent freedom. Spreading your wings and just going, nothing in your way. Spread your wings. It's definitely about freedom, and it's also about perspective. We, as a bird, depending on where you are in flight, changes your perspective of the world. We'll say. But if you take a bird and put it into a box, what is it? What is that box to a bird? It is a prison. That plays back into the artist Gavani or whatever his name was, plays back because remember he dealt with creating fictitious and atmospheric prisons. So the box for the bird is a prison. And so remember at the end, Mallory and the kids make it to the safe haven. They make it to the sanctuary that has the closed-in courtyard with all the vines. It's beautiful with the columns and the birds flying everywhere as their natural alarm system. But they got to stay in there to be safe. Or at least they would be confronted by the demons. So they too, Mallory, the children, and every other resident that makes it to that safe haven are in a prison that has been built. It was an architectural, back to the image in the book before I move forward. Back to the image in the book. When you look at the image to the side of me, whatever side it is, I can't tell. It is this vertical kind of perspective. And you can see that there are vaults. It's a vaulted ceiling. That was just like with the courtyard. Again, referencing back to the artist. Remember, the artist dealt with prisons, atmospheric prisons. The image that you're seeing is like a representation. I forgot the title of it, but we're going to say that's one of his prison scenes. It was something else though. But that atrium or that enclosed courtyard, although beautiful, was also made with that vertical lift and the vaulted ceilings in the movie. That was their safe haven. So it was a beautiful prison that they were confined to. So I'm going to go back because there's something else I'm about to move into. So as mentioned, the movie, I believe the characters originally started in California and they had to move down the stream for 2 days, 2 whole days to get to the safe haven. And so the stream is really, really important because the stream talks about roll, roll, roll your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. That song is popular, childhood, kind of song. And so we have different variations. One goes something like this. Roll, roll, roll your boat gently down the stream. Like, see if you can make it to the shore before it sinks. Or something like this, or something like that. It's like, roll, roll, roll your boat gently down the stream. Try to make it to the shore before your boat sinks. Or something like that. And so you see up in the upper corner opposite from the book that I've been talking about is a little metal or tin or aluminum rowboat. This is similar to the rowboat that Mallory and the children travel for 2 days in with blankets over their heads and blindfolds on, riding down a stream. And that stream was choppy. It was choppy. It was really, really choppy. And I do know it was getting cold, probably considerably cold, for a couple of reasons. One is that Mallory, it was 5 years later, though, when the children left. But I remember that 5 years, I'm going to say to the day, that when they were in the car going to the grocery store, the temperature in the car read 63 degrees Fahrenheit or something like 63 degrees. Then she had on a coat. Then the waters were very, very choppy. And it was something else, but it lets you know that it wasn't warm while they riding down the stream. And the waters were rough. And so I sang that song, Roll, Roll, Roll Your Boat, the childhood nursery rhyme, because that's what her ride on the boat represents her life. It represents our lives and how life is short. It seems what somewhat like a dream, just like the song says. And the water represents our emotions and how we feel and how it gets real rough sometime, and we riding in this little tin or aluminum boat, not no big old safe yacht. We riding this little tin boat that can tip over at any time due to rocks, debris, any old threats. We constantly being threatened, and this is all the things that were taking place while Mallory and the children rolled down the stream. They were being taunted and threatened by crazies and having to fight back. And all the time they're in blindfolds, and they lost their food. So this is their life. This is their life for 2 days. They lost their food. It's cold as shit. They can't look. They can't see. They bouncing in things. The boat's spinning. The water cold. It's splashing everywhere. And that's before they got to the hard part of the stream. They came upon some rapids that they had to ride, And so the boat just represents how we have like this thin shell around us as we move through this life, and just how vulnerable we feel as we move forward in life. But I got to go back and talk about Tom. That's the black guy, ex-military. That was a construction person that ended up hooking up with Mallory later. In the course of the movie, they kind of started digging each other. After Tom died, spoiler, of course, after Tom died, Mallory, Sandra Bullock, is sitting there. She's crying her eyes out. She's bawling. And the clock, one of those old big being clocks, is sitting there just going off. You can just hear it going off. The clock, you got, that them old big being clocks got this distinctive ring, like it's rocking the whole clock. And so she's just crying. And all of a sudden she comes out of it. And she realizes that it is time, big being clock, to move on. Time goes on. Life goes on. And it was time for her to go on them rapids with them kids and make their way to the safe haven, which is actually a prison, a pretty prison. And so now I'm about to go and talk about, before closing this video down, I want to talk about the cubes at the top. First, then the planet. You see that planet. That planet is a Saturn, supposed to be Saturn. You see Saturn with the rings. And we talk about Saturn when I talk about the tarot cards and astrology. Saturn's it's like supposed to be equivalent to like Satan. Satan is the ruler of this realm. He gives you all this material stuff. But Saturn represents the boundaries of your flesh, the boundaries of everything that exists in this world. Everything has boundaries. I don't care what it is. I use the body as an example because it's easy to see how your soul is entrapped in this particular vessel. And so Saturn just represents every limit, every boundary, every restriction. It tells you, hey, you got to live life, learn, and mature quick, fast, in a hurry, or you die. Saturn also does it deals, I think it's directly related to Chronos, and it talks about time and getting old and dying, and so you feel like you're in a rush and you gotta go. That's what Saturn is. And why do I bring that up? The birds. Back to the three little birds. The three little birds. Remember, the three little birds represent freedom and having your own perspective. But once put in a box, you are enslaved. You are imprisoned. Those boxes that you see, I just used one because I couldn't find the image of the birds in the box from the movie. But in the movie, Mallory keeps the birds. Well, when they go to travel, the birds are in this box. And it's very square, like the little black and white box you see. It's a little square, lid come off, fit back on, got some holes so the birds won't suffocate. But that box in this movie represents Saturn, that planet, and that cube that I have up there. Two representations of it. The boundaries, the limits, the restrictions that stop those little birdies from being free. Those same restrictions that are imposed or that Saturn governs are the same restrictions that Mallory and the children and the rest of the residents that made it to the safe haven will have to deal with. The freedom is gone. Let me see how I can make this make sense. The freedom is gone. And of course, this movie shows that it's gone. It's limited. It's limited. See, Saturn is also about contracting, pulling it in, where Jupiter is about expanding, growth, gaining understanding and clarity. Saturn pulls you in and contracts you. And so, just like the little birds got to be tight up in the box. Yeah. And so the same thing is, again, about Mallory and the kids and whoever make it to the safe haven. But relative to us, those cubes represent this matrix that we are currently in this world. And we have created many constructs, every construct you could think of, business, marriage. This world has at some point expanded the box, our reality, our matrix, like the movie Matrix. And because it has expanded, let me see if I can say this right. Think of one of those boxes above me as this world, as our realm or reality that we are in. You just a little dot in the box. Me too. We're in this box. And we have continued in a time period in which we were able to expand that box. And it keep growing. And it keep growing. However, as we grew this world, humanity got sicker, more sick, more emotionally alienated from each other. We can sit right next to each other, but we're preoccupied with our phone or something else. A person next to us can be going through something and we don't know or we don't care. We watch the news or we pick up the paper and we read it, but we don't know what to do or we don't feel like we can do anything and we set the paper aside. So as our realm, our reality has grown and expanded and we've gotten high tech. I even talk about the technology. I ain't gonna do it. High tech. We also got very sick, emotionally detached. And remember, the movie was really all about forging contracts with others and what it means to be in an intimate connection with another, whomever that other may be. And so even though this world seems really, really big, in the famous words, y'all know, Jiminy Cricket, it's a small world after all. It's a small realm. So even though the world big, we're still in these boundaries. But due to our inability to collaborate and work together and be healthy and tend to ourselves, our emotional needs, wounds, hurts, things like that, and help people with others, this realm is about to shrink. Saturn contracts. The box the birds were in is symbolic of the realm or the world closing in around you. And it's for a purpose, just like Sandra Bullock and the kids, the boy and girl getting to the safe haven, is for a purpose. It's like offering you a new start. It's offering us all a new start. So let's talk about, in closing, the boy and the girl that she did name. Mallory ended up having a little boy. The other woman had a little girl. But you know what happened to the other woman. So all of a sudden, Mallory gets to raise two children. She didn't even want the one, but she get to raise two. This is a woman that's emotionally scarred, still emotionally detached. But now she got two kids she don't even care about. She won't even name them. She ain't naming them. She's really making sure. They say if you name something, you get closer to it. If you feed it, it gets closer to you. She wouldn't even name them. So these kids got to the age of 5. They was born on the same day. They got to the age of 5 before they got a name. 5. Yep, 5 years before they got a name. At the end, she does name them, and she names the little boy, her son, after Thomas. the guy she fell in love with in the course of the movie, and she names the little girl after her mother, who was on Olympia. And then it was a scene in the movie where when they were hitting the real rough rapids, she said, somebody's got to look. She told the kids that somebody got to look. It can't be me. It got to be one of y'all. Because if I look, we ain't going to make it. So immediately, I would think the viewer starts thinking like, well, dang, is she about to sacrifice this other woman's little girl to get her and her son to safety? Because remember, Mallory was emotionally detached, blocked, and shut down. She already didn't give a care. But we would assume that she just had a little bit of love or compassion for her own child. So as the viewer most likely was going through that kind of intellectual processing, relative to that dilemma, the little boy, 5-year-old boy says, I'll do it. I'll look. And immediately, Mallory says, no, you won't. I'll choose. That was interesting to me because it shows that in that moment, she was changing, that she was convicted in some way, with being responsible, being a mom, because she could have told that little girl, you're the one that's going to do it. That little girl don't know that ain't her mama. You're going to do it and sacrifice that little girl in order to make way for her son, but she didn't. They rolled, if I'm not mistaken, they rolled the remainder of that stream in a rapid part blindly, but they made it. But that showed a lot of growth. And so right now, in close, I just want to talk about the little boy and little girl who didn't have a name. Do they represent a new beginning? And what's the new beginning? A new generation. I often speak about on my channel how a lot of young folks don't have a point of reference. They're too young. They don't know how it was. So now we have children that were born in the midst of this madness and chaos in this movie Bird Box. That's all that they know. That's all they know is to wear blindfolds. All they know is to be dirty. That's all they know. They don't know what it was prior to that. And so that boy and girl kind of represents, the cliche of Adam and Eve, the first man and woman. They were born right in the midst of it. At the onset, they were born in it. That's all they know. All around them, they smelled rotten and flesh. You know what I'm saying? So it was the norm to them. I just had a conversation with some folks in my family about what's the norm? What is the norm? I'm going to talk about, go and make a video about what is the norm for you and your family. Because I'm going to just say this, because some people can look over at you or your family and like, something wrong with them folks. Or they weird. Or they this. Why? Well, to you, this is what me and my family is going to. To you, it's just the norm for y'all. It's just the norm. But others don't understand it. And so that's what the little boy and girl represent, the new generation. They have no point of reference. They're not old enough. All they know is what they were born into. And then they go into the sanctuary, the safe house, the haven, which is actually a prison. But they won't ever know that it's a prison because they don't have a point of reference. Now, Mallory will come to understand that it is like a prison because she does what? She has a point of reference. But all of this stuff, it was something I was going to say about the little boy and girl. All of this stuff happened because people could not deal with their inner demons. They couldn't deal with self. They couldn't deal with life and what it was. And they just kept going on and ignoring things and till it got back up. And so we will say more ancient energy or divine energy had to come give them revelation. They were full of the darkness. It had to come out. They had to see. And as the crazies were saying, it's beautiful. Yes, the truth is absolutely beautiful. To be able to acknowledge what the issues or concerns are, I'm sure is very beautiful. Why is it beautiful? Because it offers us the opportunity to address the issues. It lets people know that they're not alone. You know, you're not alone. But it is offered in the movie where we are, based on my understanding about this realm and this place, is that we're in that place where we haven't addressed those issues. We have hidden issues, wounds, hurts, concerns. We're preoccupied with ourselves. We don't really get emotionally engaged with others. We enter relationship contracts with others, and we don't fulfill our obligations or contribute. You know, all these relationship issues and breakdowns are leading us to that dark night, basically the dark night of the soul, in which many people will not be able to handle the dark night of the soul. I've been talking about that and reporting on the possibility, and I named it back in October, I think, for Halloween, the Purple Panic, in which the economy in reality is going to change. And I'll be off in a minute. The economy is going, I do believe, is going to change. We know that, remember, we're entering from the old paradigm into the new paradigm. And the new paradigm, everything is redefined. Money, currency, colors, textures, everything, medical, body parts. I mean, you name it. Everything is being overhauled. And you heard me say at the beginning of this video, the older generation is being pushed out. It's getting pushed out. I think they're going to get pushed out earlier than most previous aging generations. I think they're going to get pushed out because we have this new generation of people that show enough got, again, a lot of wounds, fears, hurts, you know. We all got them, but I'm saying these younger folks came up through some stuff. And so we are moving into a literally, I do believe, a time and space that a lot of us are going to, many of us are going to be confronted with our worst fears or nightmares. We are already vulnerable, but we hide it. And this is what this bird box is about. We hide it. All of us hide it. And we keep moving forward. And that's what I say. It's interesting to me that this movie came out now and how it's trending, because it wasn't the most excellent movie. It was cool. And I love Sandra Bullock. I love her. And Tom, oh God, he was so cute. He was so cute. Anyway, I digress. But how it came out, and when you really dive into this movie and you break it down, it's saying the same thing that the astrological energies are saying. And it's telling you exactly why these things are going to happen, just like the astrological energy is, just like spiritual text tells the same story. But we can't see, or and I didn't say that there's 3 people that can survive. People that are psychologically messed up, the blind, and very clever and aware people with blindfolds can survive this ancient energy. And it's really about dealing with or accepting life for what it is, seeing the errors of our ways and correcting them. And that is dealing, we got to deal with the hard stuff. The people that were psychopaths dealt with the hard stuff. The blind people dealt with the hard stuff. And Sandra Bullock, who is Mallory, ended up having to deal with the hard stuff. And those were the survivors. Well, thank you all for coming here to Can Angels Fly and let me talk about oh man, I don't even know if I said this. I really want to say this because I thought this was a cute thing to show how you doing, lady. That's my Christmas gift.
I came again.
Stay out the camera, I'm live. But I ain't seen you in a while.
Yeah, I came over here to show my face to y'all.
Yeah, well, happy holidays to you.
Happy holidays to you too.
You got the baby?
Nah, she with her daddy.
Oh, you free?
Yeah.
Go on, girl, with your bad self. Well, I'll be down. You gonna be over here for a minute?
Yeah.
What you going in that pocket for? I got something else.
Yeah.
Turn up, baby. Y'all hold on just a minute. This is what I'm talking about. Put it on the table. Let me make some room right there. And if y'all go out this door, let me know. Because I need a pop. I'm traumatized.
I should have called before I came.
Ooh, I'm about to get off in a minute anyway. Put that right there. If y'all go to the store, don't forget. I need a pop. Love you. Thank you. You said you're going to be here for a minute, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I might spend the night with y'all.
Okay. Don't start no crap. I don't like, we ain't cool like that. Are you driving?
No, he gonna come pick me up in the morning.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'll be off in a minute. Excuse me, y'all. We ain't cool like that. But that ain't funny. No, I'm telling the truth. So the last thing I wanted to read, because I just, I hope this thing, because last time I did this thing, it was so horrible. It was absolutely horrible. This is one thing that I'm talking about placement and how they create movies. And one of the things when I might have said it, but I'm not sure. And I thought it was so cute when I looked back at the movie, and it was about when Mallory, Sandra Bullock, started flirting with Thomas or Tom, black ex-military. He was fine, right? And so they got the grocery store, and they're gathering the food, and I don't think she had found the little birdies yet. This is right before she found the little birdies, but they were in a particular aisle. And he comes down the aisle and he just kind of making small conversation with her, sharing with her that his sister was on her fourth child and how he just loved to rub his sister's stomach, And so he flirting and Mallory playing hard to get, talking about she old enough to be his mama. Yeah, right. Anyway, I'm going to leave it alone for y'all know who I really am. And so as I'm looking at the scene, I realized, remember, Mallory is heartbroken, but she's frozen it with by shutting down her emotions and being emotionally detached and that kind of thing, and just drawn into herself. So the aisle that they were standing in the market in the back, all you could see was cold COLDB, a cold B, because she was playing hard to get cold B. I said that was a nice setup, just being artistic. I'm sure it can be fun and challenging, and how I don't know who does that, the camera person or the director, had made sure that the aisle was positioned and the wording was positioned where all you seen was cold B. And so I look at the top of the aisle, and that's where it say what aisle you in, if you're in the cereal aisle or whatever. But they were in the dry goods aisle, like she dry, dry goods. And it said non-perishables, but it just tickled me how that kind of arrangement of the scene, how the scene was arranged as Tom started trying to hit on Mallory, and how she was trying to play hard to get, and she's standing there at her back with the word saying cold B. I was like, go on with y'all bad stuff. So they did, I still something else. So they did put the movie together good, but like I said, I done seen so many post-apocalyptic movies till they have to really turn up to make me get excited. Okay, I did that. But what I didn't share, remember I shared in this movie that Tom got killed, of course. And right before he got killed, he turned to Mallory and he said, I love you. Girl, I love you. And he snatches off his necklace. And his necklace looked like it was just a circle. It was like a target with a ball in the middle. And I found it because that was another placement. Oh, gone girl.
I ain't get your name. My person's name.
What? We about to have a falling out.
No. I'll give him tomorrow.
Well, I got to suffer.
Oh, you ain't got to suffer. You got to suffer for a couple hours.
Did you mix this up with something other than what I said?
Uh-uh.
Okay.
You know she can bring your ice cream out.
What?
Tony bought mine. I told you my purse is too heavy, Mama.
Well, what I'm gonna talk about? I'm on live.
Okay.
I want half of your ice cream.
Pearl already claimed half my ice cream.
Well, you better break it down in the third, or it's gonna be hell to pay. It's gonna be hell to pay if I don't get what I want. So he snatches off his necklace, and for the first time, you see he has the necklace on throughout the movie. It was a charm, the cord and the charm, but you never really see the charm. But they make sure, the director makes sure that you see the charm when he says, "Here, I love you, I love you, I love you," and you see it's this like metal disc with the grooves in it with the ball in the middle. And what does that play back into it? What does Tom's charm play back into? It plays back into that which is just right above me. That Saturn cube, that box, that trap, Saturn. In this movie, it really talks about Saturn worship. Saturn worship. Between the box that the birds was in, the final sanctuary, the necklace Tom wore, and I talked about all the artist stuff, it was just how everything is placed in movies. Now, I've never ever really been into breaking movies down to this depth, but I see that people talk about it so much, I just had to give it a try. I see it since this movie is a rage and rave or whatever you call it, or trending, I'm going to try it. These directors and these writers really do place information in these movies. Like I said, the row your boat kind of thing, and a theme and emotional roller coaster we ride through life, being vulnerable. The birds in the box representing the taking away of one's freedom, and being and the world contrasting on you. And that's what I was saying. Like now, the time period we are in astrologically is we're entering into a time where things are about to contrast. This new paradigm contrasting. We governmental issues such as the healthcare issue, the what do you call it, Social Security, or paying into Social Security. These things are shrinking and getting smaller. Marriage is being redefined. Everything is getting shrunken or smaller or tighter, especially when it has to do with what? All your second house matters, your physical, worldly wants, needs, and desires. And so that is what the Bird Box is all about, and how our emotional baggage, I'll say, that we're not handling on an individual level as well as a global level, like the news is like, it's made sure the news program made sure in the movie to let you know it was a global issue, that because we're not dealing with it, the dark night of soul is coming, and that dark night of the soul is going to be initiated by the shrinking of our reality, or the shrinking of our personal comforts. So I thank you again for coming here and allowing me to break down Bird Box. And go ahead and watch it and see if you can see what I saw in Bird Box. And yes, Jordan, again, I think I'm ready for 2019. But the way I see it, it seems like it's going to be the beginning. Well, the shrinking has already begun, but it'll be noticeable in 2019. So I suggest, and I'm trying to listen to myself, if you can stack some cash, stack some cash. If you ain't employed, get employed. Family. Oh, this is another thing. I'm going to share this here. I got a Facebook account, and now I'm going to let y'all go. I have a Facebook account. I barely use it, but around Christmas, holidays, I take pictures and do things like that and post. So this Christmas, we had a really nice Christmas, and we had planned to take home family photos, professional home family photos, however you call it. So we got our red on and our hats, and we making our different poses, uploading to Facebook. After Christmas, I go back on Facebook and I see that most of the families that I know did the exact same thing. Not that they bought the red or the hat. Some did, some didn't. But everybody was really into taking family photos, family unit. And I started looking at every family that I was friends with, and I said, That's interesting. I never noticed that before. Some like one year it seemed like everybody was putting their trees up. And another year everybody was doing this. They was going live. And another year they was doing that frozen thing. What do they call it? Where they were frozen and playing the music in the background. But this year everybody got grouped up and did the family photo thing, the self-created professional family photos. And I was like, that's interesting that was the trend for Christmas this year of 2018, because in the upcoming year, 2019 and beyond, if I'm saying things are going to get tighter, things are shrinking or contrasting, then back in the day, people used to have to live together and everybody come together and contribute together to make things happen. And I think that's kind of where we're headed now. Like in the movie, all of those people, all of the characters were well-to-do. They had their own house, they was doing their own thing, and nobody cared about the next person. They were they were absorbed in their own world. I talked about that a few times during this live stream. In reality, we've been like that. But the dark night of the soul is going to be brought on, because now many of us are going to have to, what is it called? A turn down, spin down, roll back, take on more hours, work together. That's what I believe that I'm seeing is starting to come in as this new paradigm comes in, where automation and technology is ruling. I believe it's going to be increased job losses. And so the best thing you can do is maybe become a doctor, go back to school, and make yourself more employable, something that the world can't do without, like a surgeon or whatever. But when we start going through it, and I'm praying for myself because I'm weak. I love this world and I want to partake in it. And just the thought of thinking that would have to spend back even more than I do, that's horrible. But people that aren't accustomed to spending back, I know I'd have had to spend back before. I just don't want to do it no more. But people that have never had to spend back or turn back or would roll back, that could be very hard on them, especially if they got medical issues, medical bills, or, things like that, a big mortgage, some cars and things like that. That can be very, very stressful. Again, looking at one's worst fears can be traumatizing. Can we stop it? I do believe we can. And I believe that movies like this Bird Box movie, if we really interpret it, if we really understand what it's showing us, if we watch folks like me here, Nancy Eck and Angel Fly Tarot, and we begin to understand what's taking place, then we can offset what is to come. I do believe that. I really do. But I think we have to work together, and we have to work together in sections. And when I say in sections, it just goes right back into the movie Bird Box, where Sandra Bullock, Mallory, and those babies, that boy and girl, had to be put in a section, a safe haven, small unit, to start again, to begin from that little sanctuary and begin to expand the world out once again. But this time, governed by the reality. And the reality is, most people were dead. Most people didn't have those luxuries anymore. That was the reality at the end of that movie. Now, y'all, I got all this wonderful love around me, so I'm going to let y'all go. I'm going to try to get my other laptop working so I can come here and talk to y'all, but I can't see, and I'm going to get confused trying to click back and forth. So good night to y'all. And tomorrow is New Year's Eve. Y'all be safe. Take care of yourself. Don't be outside ringing no bells while some other fool's shooting. So y'all just be safe and enjoy your New Year's Eve and day. Until next time, y'all. Bye.